I recognize your face. I'm sorry I forget your name.
I'm the Antichrist.
You're the Antichrist.
Yeah. I have a lot of issues with the Bible.
Yeah.
I didn't read it because I'm nominally Catholic, but I didn't go to church, thank God, right?
Right.
I went to Sunday school for a summer. I learned how to name all 84 books of the Bible. I got
84?
with Old and New Testament, that's what I remember.
Okay.
Like, they had us each week, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, or whatever. And we got candy. We could do it, and then at the end, I could name them all and stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you, because I'm learning things or whatever. But I opened up the Bible at one point randomly, and I read some horribly misogynist stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
And so this whole the document, it's sort of it's to protect, it's to enshrine, not finding the right word, the patriarchy, right? And it's very evil to me, right? And what we've done to women for millennia. And here's my question. I want to find a real smart person that's thought about this a lot that can answer for me why it was that since women there's some beautiful women around here, you know what I mean?
Yes, there are. We agree on that.
Yeah, women are smarter than men, mostly, right? They're just more beautiful beings. But some gang of men a long time ago decided to basically suppress them, right?
That's very simple, because men are sinners. And that's why men have had chauvinistic, sexist attitudes, because men are sinners. That's evil. That's wrong. And the Bible clearly states that.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, really.
But there's a lot of misogyny in the Bible, I think.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rape and murder and adultery and polygamy. The Bible is an historical record. It includes the account of a lot of evil.
Right.
Including sexism, racism, polygamy, murder, rape. It's all in there.
It's horrible. All right, I have another question for you. So, in my honest, humble opinion, if you want to learn about religion and what it is, you should listen to Alan Watts. I think Alan Watts was God. And he died in 73. You know Alan Watts, right?
No, I don't.
He was a British man. He trained to be an Episcopal priest.
Yeah.
But he developed an interest in Buddhism as a young man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he traveled to the United States, and during the 50s and 60s, he gave many talks on Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., etc.
Yep.
And you can watch these; they're fascinating. There's about 100 talks on YouTube that you can listen to. So if you want to learn about religion, you should check that out.
Good.
But anyway, he makes a point about, in the Greek translation, it says that Jesus says, "I am a son of God," right? Now, this is important.
No, he doesn't say that.
That's what the Greek said. See,
no, it's not.
His point was, the Greek says, that Jesus is saying, "I am a son of God," but it's mistranslated as, "I am the son of God."
Yeah.
Right? Because basically we're all sort of incarnations of God.
No, that's not what Jesus taught.
Well, it's the truth. I'm telling you now.
Okay.
But so, from that confusion, and I guess he also makes the point that they pedestalized Jesus. So basically they took this mystic. There have been mystics also throughout history, right?
Yes, sir. Many mystics.
Like the Buddha,
Yep.
that 12th century Sufi poet, the mystic, what's his name?
Well, there are many.
Yeah, there were many, and so it's sort of ridiculous but I think that was their strategy is to say, like, okay, well, Jesus was God and that's it. So no one else can be God, after him. But I understand that religion exists to oppress humanity. It's used by evil institutions, like there's many, like the Vatican.
Well, sure, it's used by evil institutions.
Et cetera.
But Jesus wasn't oppressive. He came to bring freedom.
No, I know. And actually, the only thing I know about Jesus, I read in the Oscar Wilde essay, "The Soul of Man Under Socialism."
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I read what his message was, and I agree with it completely.
Yeah.
But I believe that, people die. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, it's not hard to basically I don't know. I don't know how you can believe. I'm not sure that he was a historical figure.
All righty. Well, I'm going to let Stuart answer you, and then I'm going to take the next gentleman after you.
Oh, okay. Out of the park.
This just seems like a very kind of more emotionally driven question because you're jumping all over the place. So are there emotional smoke screens here, or am I way off?
You're
referring to sexism and a lot of these other issues. So are there emotional smoke screens? I'm just wondering.
I don't know what that means, but the thing is, like, the Bible is full of shit, right? And the thing is, it's so stupid. Like, have you seen the Book of Mormon, the play by the South Park boys or whatever?
Yeah.
It's so easy to show that it's ridiculous, you know? Yeah. And it's amazing. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Good.
But I mean, I don't know, like, how do all these men, these pastors and all this, like, how do you justify the misogyny?
Okay, so I'm lost when you say that. I couldn't disagree more because actually, if you look into the history, Christianity did more for women and equal rights and gender rights than any other religion. So I don't know where exactly are you referring to 1 Timothy when it talks about women shouldn't speak in church? Is that what you're referring? Like, what are you referring to?
What I said earlier was that I opened the book up at random and read some, and I can't.
Speak up a little bit.
Fortunately, I can't quote. I'm sorry, I don't remember like the.
But you can't come out here and start making claims that the Bible is sexist, and you don't even have one passage to go by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. I mean, I wasn't hallucinating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because there's female leaders in the church throughout the entire New Testament, right?
And they've only allowed females.
I have many friends who have their senior pastors are women.
I know, and that's only in very recent history in the last 30 years or so, or I don't know, but you tell me. But it's very, very recent, right? But yeah, this is the patriarchal.
So I'll keep going.
Culture.
Okay, we'll stay on the sexism topic then.
Yeah,
I still think there's a serious emotional smokescreen here, but maybe I'm wrong. But okay, sexism in general. Why in the world would women be the first ones to go to the empty tomb of the resurrected Christ? Why would the gospel writers put that in there? Because immediately that's elevating women to be the first ones to see a dead man who claimed to be God risen from the dead. So their validation of that fact is higher than man's in every way. Is that sexist?
I don't believe that. I mean,
okay, well that's just what the scriptures say.
Yeah, but see, let's go back to that. And the earlier gentleman.
So that's validating women. That's one.
The earlier gentleman was saying,
keep going.
There was a disagreement over like which book you should trust. Should you trust the Quran or the Bible? Like, why on earth would you trust a book that's a collection of writings by dead, men that have been dead for a long time? Many of the important books are left out of it. The Gnostic, do you know what the Gnostic Gospels
Absolutely,
are? Yeah, like, I mean, you don't even, and here's another point. The thing
Gospel
is that,
Thomas, et cetera,
aside from Christian mystics,
right,
in the Christian religion, this is how you oppress people, is you don't allow them to really, be enlightened and really understand that, that I guess that's the thing. Like, it's putting people's minds in a little box, that they can't escape out of or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, so why are they?
Okay, so we'll talk about freedom since you're going there. Okay, freedom. We've talked a lot in the last few days. A lot of students have brought up moral absolutes, right? I would say one of the only, if not the only, absolute today in our culture is freedom. Would you agree with me on that? So it was brought up negative and positive freedom.
Okay.
Both were brought up, right?
Okay.
So negative freedom is freedom against, positive freedom is freedom for.
Okay.
My argument from the Christian faith, why it makes the most sense of freedom and why it is the most freeing for both you and me in terms of our self-worth, our identity. But let's go with relationships, okay?
Okay.
We can go with the other two later. Relationally, why it is the most freeing is because it is a positive type of freedom, not the negative freedom, which says it validates you as an individual completely, says you have free will, and yet at the same time, when it comes to, say, marriage, you are supposed to sacrifice for your spouse in order to have a loving relationship. So you have that relationship right there, the marriage relationship. Now let's make this broader. Let's take it societal, culturally speaking. If you have a type of positive instead of a negative freedom, where you're negating freedom for a positive reason, you're going to make sacrifices for the poor. You're going to make sacrifices for your children. You're going to make sacrifices for your spouse, friendships. So in my mind, that's exactly what the Bible reinforces, a type of positive freedom, when negative freedom is deleterious to our culture, which is what you see in so much of our culture today.
I mean, like...
So when you say this box, I'm just trying to get at, what are you talking about when you say box?
Oh, well, I mean, okay, I've read a lot of books in my life, and I believe to get at the truth, you better look at a lot of sources, right? That would be my argument. You need to look here, look there. Bro. Right, look everywhere, and then just think for yourself, right?
Yep.
But the truth is, sound like a gunshot. Anyway, what was I saying?
Okay, so let's just keep going with freedom then, okay? So, Barry Schwartz, someone brought up TED Talks yesterday, so I'll stay with TED Talks. Barry Schwartz talks about...
I remember that what I was working on. The thing is, like, it just makes me sad to see people... I mean, I'm glad that they're studying something and reading something, but they're always reading the same book, and they read it over and over and over again, but that's the only thing that they can read, right? And, that's why I think it's used to control people, right?
Right.
That seems pretty obvious to me, right? Like, you're restricted, really, from looking in other places.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's why I try and pull from as many external sources that I possibly can. I don't just look at the Bible. That would be a little narrow-minded. You're exactly correct. But again, why I still want to get at, where is your kind of more anger coming from? Because you called yourself the Antichrist when you stepped up here. Then you talked about misogynism, sexism.
Yeah.
There's some
anger.
Is religion evil? Is that why you're doing this? Was Christ evil?
Not Christ. I told you I believe in his message.
Okay.
And there's, that
I'm
Buddhist
just trying to get,
Well, that Buddhist guy, Thich Nhat Hanh, wrote a book called Living Buddha, Living Christ.
I love that book. Great
where
book.
He compares the two, and that's good to make the point that, okay, this wasn't the only guy or whatever, but what I don't know. Oh, anger. Right. Well, I mean, just that people are controlled in this way. It's horrible. And all the violence. When I was reading about the, Bloody Mary in England, I don't know the whole story, but because of this fight over whether our religion's going to be Protestantism or Catholicism, how much blood is shed, right? So blood is shed all the time because of religion, right? Yeah. And, demonizing those brown people over there so we can, murder them, which we do by the hundreds
so
daily,
true.
I guess. Not right.
I totally agree with you.
And how can a man, go and be a mercenary for these corporations, murder people, and then I think all murder should be illegal. I think all murder is wrong. But how can he do that? I'm not done yet. How can he do that? Then come back and go to church on Sunday and
that's hypocrisy. Good. Yeah. Exactly right. Okay, so you brought up two right there. 2 in 1, in the sense of religion can be violent, and you also have the issue of hypocrisy, right? Okay, religious hypocrites I have to answer for as a pastor on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ was confronting religious hypocrisy throughout the entire New Testament, if you look at it, right? With the main group was the Pharisees, right? So, first of all, religious hypocrisy is completely wrong. And if you want a case study, look at the Pharisees, how they treat the poor, how they're into self-aggrandizement, and how they're all about praying in front of people so they can seem more self-righteous, right?
Right.
Okay.
And that's what our society is full of
so,
now.
We're taking that, so that's an example of hypocrisy.
And that's where I agree
and now
with
we'll
Jesus
apply it to religion, like you said.
Right.
And how is religion bad? How is it evil? Reinhold Niebuhr, are you familiar?
I know that name.
Okay.
Philosopher. Yeah.
Yep. Great cultural critic as well. He talked about how, he would totally agree with you, just like I would. Religion can easily be used for prideful reasons.
Right.
And when it is, it destroys in every single way. because it just gives a person another reason to be more moral, more spiritual
Right.
than another
I'm more
human being.
human, more special than those people.
Exactly. And when you colonize that, whoa, watch out.
Right.
I want no part in that. Right? That gets back to the dogma point that was made yesterday. So, okay, that's one. But then Niebuhr goes on to say, but hold on, wait a second. If you look at Jesus Christ and Christ's claims, you start to get an understanding of he calls you to give up yourself. And when religion is all about surrender and you're not living for yourself or trying to, quote unquote, figure yourself out, because we're all mixed in our feelings and our understandings of self, when we're fully self-transcended, that is when the claims of Jesus Christ and the Christian faith can do so much for society and has done so much.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, like humility, I agree with, that's a good thing, and that's not something I disagree with. I'll just have one more point and then I'll sit down. But I don't really understand original sin. And see, that's another evil thing because people, I mean, you tell them from the time they're born that they're a sinner. So they always have this. Alan Watts has this great talk where he talks about that guilt. Their sense of guilt is unnecessary. So that guilt destroys people, right? It makes them, it's not a good thing. So now I don't use myself as an example because I'm not the nicest person necessarily, but I know people and even like adult people who are angels, so to speak, like they're real sweet and you could never imagine them, harming another person.
Yep.
And to call that, thinking of a woman friend that I know, to call that person a sinner is wrong.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yep.
It's wrong.
So good. Sin's coming up a lot today. I want to talk about a biblical definition of sin because sin has been given, it's been defined wrongly over the years in many ways, in my understanding.
Okay.
I believe sin, the reason why Jesus Christ calls us out for our sin and wants us to change is because sin is ultimately against human flourishing. So in that sense, Sigmund Freud would agree with me. Nietzsche would agree with me. Sigmund Freud talked a ton about original sin and our dark side, correct?
Right. Civilization and its discontent.
Exactly. Thank you. And so, but he never really he was a pretty depressed guy himself, was he not? Right? And so he never really gave the antidote to that problem. But he's one of my atheistic heroes in that sense because he talks about this dark side of humanity. And how in the world do we get to a place of saying, okay, what can we do about this? So I brought up Nietzsche and Freud. I'll go now Kierkegaard, who said, in order to get through this type of sin, you have to know yourself better. What are your tendencies? What are your motives? What drives you? And Kierkegaard went on to say, you get over sin, you know your true self in relationship to God. Again, self-transcendence.
Right.
Not living in the self.
Right.
So when we align ourselves to Christ, to God, that is when our character grows. That's when we can change.
Right.
I'll go back to my Alcoholics Anonymous friends that I've been doing a lot of work with lately.
Yeah.
When they start to surrender their own self-interests and make sacrifices, transcend the self, they see tremendous healing in their own mental health and relational health.
No, and I agree with that. I've been going to AA recently, so I kind of you've seen the philosophy or whatever. I agree. The only
so I'm surprised that you're so angry.
The only problem I have with what you're saying is that Christ is not necessary for this, or God, which we don't know how to define. We don't know what we're talking about when we say God.
So you disagree with your AA buddies then? Because what are the fundamental tenets of AA?
I guess what you said. Those things that does help people with mental health issues and relationships. And I see the church helping people with that. It's just, in my mind, you don't need the Bible. You don't need Christ. I don't understand this obsession with this one man, who lived 2,000 years ago.
Sure. And it's getting back to your original question. What do we do with shame, guilt, and our dark side, our Freudian dark side? How do we get over that? How does humanity change? W.H. Auden was an atheist before he saw the world wars. And then all of a sudden, he became a Christian because he saw the dark side of humanity. He said, humanity is really sinful. Technology is not going to improve humanity. There needs to be a Christ figure to improve humanity.
Right.
Again, it's above the human self. The self cannot balance in itself both meaning, purpose, good, evil. It's too small, right? It is entirely too small. So getting back to the shame and guilt, what is going to eradicate that shame and guilt? And Christ's claim is, it's like my New Age friend who just became a Christian. He said, my understanding was that I was God and that you were God. There was light in both of us. But nothing could ultimately take away my shame and guilt until I went to the cross of Christ. This guy's a brilliant businessman, and he said, as soon as I got in touch with the grace of God and the cross of Christ, that guilt and shame for all the wrong I had done was completely swept away.